Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 149 of the Debt Free Dad podcast. So is anyone else confused at when and what you should tip for, let alone how much? It seems there are tip lines showing up on more and more receipts nowadays, and some I would never consider to even give a tip. So what the heck do you do when you're in that situation? Do you tip? Do you don't tip? Do you fall for that tip guilt, right? And tip anyways? We're going to talk all about it on today's show. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Debt Free Dad podcast, where we're helping normal, everyday people learn how to save money and kick debt so they can live a happier and stress-free life. Now here's your host, Debt Free Dad, Brad Nelson.
Hey, how is everyone doing today? You can find me on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. Just search Brad Nelson, Debt Free Dad. And as always, guys, welcome to today's show. So glad that you guys are joining us. And remember to get all the resources, show notes, and links for today's show. Head over to balancesense.com/149. That's BALANCEDCENTS.com/149. So, guys, we're going to talk about this topic of tipping. And I actually posted, and while you guys are debating, I'm going to go back to this Facebook post that we had in our Live Without Payments page. But there was a lot of comments on this about how do you feel about tipping? Like, when's the right and wrong time to tip? And there was even a little bit of debate back and forth between those people commenting. I know one for sure was more about, like, you know, tipping like baristas, you know, your coffee person that's making your favorite drink, and there was someone had made a comment of, well, they're just pouring that into a cup, and the one person worked for a coffee company. That's not all we do. This is all we do, right? So what do you guys think about this? Just off the top, before we get into this, like, just when you think about this, for me, it's more frustration right now. And Sarah and I have talked about this. That's why Sarah's on here. And Sarah's my wife, by the way. If you're watching this on YouTube, Sarah's sitting next to me. It's a little bit weird, a camera view right now. But this is my wife, Sarah. And Sarah and I have often debated on tipping. And the reason I brought Sarah on is because Sarah worked in the service industry. She was a waitress and worked in a restaurant for many years and worked off tips. And so we have a different perspective. Now, I've worked in the service industry, but not in the tipping industry. I worked at fast food restaurants. I've worked in grocery stores, things that you provide service for, but why you don't get a tip for any of those things, right? So for me, the tipping industry is always just a little, it's just weird. It's just a strange thing. So we talk about it a lot, but what are your guys' initial feelings on this?
I'm a guilt tipper for sure.
It comes down to law of reciprocity, right? They gave you something and you want to give them something, but if you know it's not a tip industry, you just say thanks and a big smile, and then they still stand there and they're like, "Am I supposed to tip you?" And then you like shake their hand and they look down. And you're like, "Was I supposed to put $1 in your hand?" It's a guilt tipper. That's what they play on. But then if your wife was there and she was like, "Don't tip," you'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm not tipping you." So you got to play off each other. So if you don't want to tip, you got to send the person that's the tipper up there, and then the other non-tipper comes in and is like, "Oh no, you're good."
I'm not a guilt tipper. No, that's not.
That does not surprise me ever. No, not at all. I can seriously see you.
You want my tip. You need to earn that tip.
But what's your definition of earning? So it could be different days, right? Like if you had crappy food, but Paul had great food, what do you do? And he's like, "I want to tip this. This was the best meal ever." And you're like, "My meal sucked." So
see, well, in a restaurant scenario where the crappy, it's not the server's fault that the food was crappy. So in that instance, I'm still tipping the server because they did a good job.
So what if the server forgot your side of ranch and remembered Paul's stuff, and he keeps saying, "Oh my God, this is the best food ever," and you're like, "She only likes you because you're a man right now, and she's forgetting all of my needs, and forget it, I'm not tipping her a cent." But everything was great except for she didn't bring you the side of ranch, and she gave hit to him and like, "Nope, that's my ranch. Where's my ranch? Oh, did you want ranch too?" Like, "Yeah, that's why I asked for it." So if he wants to give
myself reacting like
right,
that,
I know, but you have.
So in a scenario where, but if the server's not doing their job, then I'm like, if the food was phenomenal, I'm walking to the kitchen. I'm giving that chef the tip. And I've done it.
So if Paul loves his server, so you went to the kitchen and he's going to slip her a tip on the side because
but that's on him.
Yep. Right, yep. So that's they play on your guilt. So whoever has the most guilt, right? So
he's the guilt tipper.
Yeah, and I'm the guilt tipper, but he's the guilt tipper if he thinks that I'm wanting a bigger tip, because we could go to somewhere that he thought the service was all great, and he's like, "Is this enough? Did I leave enough?" And I'm like, "I don't know. What did you? It's fine." And then he's like, "Well, are you just going to come back and tip more?" And I'm like, "What? I didn't even see how much it was. Like, I don't even know what you ordered. So if you like I just got here and I'm just getting a drink. So whatever you want to tipper. So it kind of comes back to then you go into your spidey senses of, well, did you like your food? Well, I don't even know. I don't remember. So you've got to play on each, like, so if you go into a restaurant, like, I will pay the check and tip, and the other person, I will pay the check and tip, I think it's going to be a lot less confusion too. Because now if you tip so you have delivery services, they want tips, right? But I go to 2 different grocery stores for my pickup. One stands there until I give them a tip, and the other one stands there until I say thank you, but then I try to give them a tip, like, oh, we don't accept tips here.
See, and this is where I want to talk about, right? This is where I want to talk about, because again,
now I look like an idiot.
The service industry, I get, you're tipping. We talked about this. We talk about it all the time. I'm kind of a firm believer. If you're going to go out to eat, go to a sit-down restaurant, you can't afford to give a tip. You can't afford to go out to eat. That's my opinion, right? That's like part of the deal. Like, they work, at least here in the United States, less than minimum wage, right? So that's going to be expected. But then now you bring up these types of deals where you have delivery or they're bringing groceries out. Now, this one hits close to home to me because I worked in a grocery store in my late high school and early college years, and we were told the same thing. Like, when we bagged groceries, we also had parcel pickup. We would bring our groceries out to their car. Here in Wisconsin, below zero, like, we were out there all the time. Very rarely were we ever given a tip back then. Now, in the times that we were supposed to not take it. I took a couple of them, all right? But we weren't supposed to take it. So, again, I think you bring up a good point. Like, how are you ever supposed to know? And now you're seeing, and I want to read this article. I want to just go through this real quick, and I want to kind of talk about where I think some of this is coming in for a lot of people and their confusion. This is from QZ.com. This article was written by Esther Bloom. And she says, there's a lot of things that, and I'm not going to go through the whole article, just the beginning. There are a lot of things we've come to expect when you buy a package of Girl Scout cookies. The joy of knowing we're supporting the troops, 10-year-olds, the addictive crumble of the Thin Mint. But most of us don't expect to be asked for a tip. Yes, that's what happened when personal finance writer Nicole Deeker used her credit card to pay for cookies with mobile payment systems like Square. The awkward situation will sound familiar to those who've used Square. Since it's launched in 2009, Square has been, admiring words of Silicon Valley, disrupted credit card payments by making them accessible to small businesses that previously had to settle for cash. It's also popping up in unexpected places, forcing customers to make new calculations about when and how much it's appropriate to hand over a little extra cash. If you've paid with your credit card or debit card at a food truck or local independent coffee shop in recent years, you definitely have been confronted by the rounded white square terminal and text asking if you would like to tip a percentage of your total, perhaps 15, 20, or 25%. No tip is an option too, of course, but when you're being asked directly under the expectant gaze of a service worker, declining to offer something extra can feel pretty petty. The New York Times calls this phenomenon, and this is why I want to get to this point, tip creep. Fast Company opts for the phrase guilt tipping, reporting that Square is facilitating tips at non-traditional venues, ice cream parlors, coffee shops, bakeries, places where tipping 20% or tipping anything for that matter is not terribly common. Now, this article was written several years ago, so I know it's becoming more common now. According to Fast Company, Square is on track to facilitate roughly $250 million in just additional tip revenue because they are asking for it on the kiosks. That's crazy, right? So this is where it kind of comes in. So I got some things that we've done. We went to a baseball game. Like, we went to like the quick service counter. picked up some hot dogs, a beer, some water, and at the bottom of the receipt, and we've had a whole episode on this, by the way, the ridiculous prices there, but on the bottom of the receipt is a tip line. And I was thinking, number one, you didn't really do anything for me. And number two, you just basically ripped my arm off to buy this from you because it's so darn expensive. There's no way I thought it should get a tip, right? But then at the same time, I'm like,
well, they didn't set the prices.
Right, exactly. So at the same time, I'm feeling some of what they're talking about in this article about this tip guilt, right? Or you look at like the hotel coffee shop. Now I get traveling, you're expected to tip. That's like one of those industries that is a no-brainer. I get it. Like that's not what we're arguing about. But like I was at a hotel coffee shop and it was like a small one and I ordered it and they didn't even give me a cup. The cup was on the counter. I had to take the cup, the lid. I had to take my cup over into the coffee, put the coffee in, put all the stuff in. I had to like do it all. But yet at the bottom of the receipt, there's a tip line. So do you tip there? And again, I didn't, but then here I am feeling guilty that I didn't tip. But I don't also feel like it's like, I don't feel like it was, you didn't really do anything. Right. You just took my money. Like, I don't feel like there's tip for that. I don't know.
Well, they guilt you into everything. You notice right now, even if you go to not even a tip industry, if you go to Target or you go to Walgreens and they're like, would you like to donate $1 to help save Florida right now? And you're like, no. And they're like, oh, you're not going to help save Florida? It's one of those things. Or like even at Christmas time, did you want to round up for the starving children that have no food this year for Christmas?
Right.
As you're buying your Christmas dinner. So you're like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, sure. Or no, we're good. Because you go into that, every place you go out offers a credit card and we just say no, but they'll tell you how great it is. And we just say, no, thank you. Or we have one, right? They're getting a bonus. So if you're going for the no, they're going to keep going, right? So the tip industry, they're putting it on there. I was getting random tips in the business that I work for, and I'm at direct sales. And I'm like, why are people tipping me? I saw on the bottom of my square, I shut it off. Brad's like, why'd you shut it off? Keep that on there. If they were tipping you, tip it on. But when you hold the door open for somebody that's coming behind you, do you expect them to give you a thank you? Do you expect them to give you $1? Sometimes they're just on their phone and they didn't even realize that and you're like, thank you. Right? Because you held the door open, you were expecting them to be like, oh, thanks. And that's it. But if it was a bellman and they held the door open and they're like, have a nice day, ma'am. And you're like, oh, and then you pay attention. You're like, oh, here's $1. Do you get $1 every time that you hold a door open for somebody? I don't know.
I should.
Right? I'm like, I don't even get a thank you anymore.
That's a genius idea.
Right? He's like wearing a tie and just holding the door open all day.
I think too. I mean, I think, just the times over the past, probably over the past, 5 to 10 years, like the way that the way we get things, the way we do things has just so radically changed as well. And I think like, the tip is like a way I think they've kind of snuck in for people to make up for lower wages.
Yeah.
And in a way that like even companies are, maybe they were like, no, we don't take tips. We're not putting a tip bucket out. But now they're like, yeah, you can put a tip bucket out because if you get a little more money, I don't have to pay you more money. You know what I mean? Like,
or they're offsetting the rising costs, right? Because the costs are going up so much. So before, waitresses that were still making $4 an hour and tips at that time was good money, right? Because your food was cheap, 79 cents for a cup of coffee. So when we talk about, older people and people that are traveling from another country don't pay because they have tips built into their prices. We talked about. So again, it's like you said, it's a culture thing. If you went to New York right now, you would expect to have to tip everyone. They live in New York, so they're like, no, or they know who to tip and who not to tip, or because you're on vacation and you see like the East Coast and you're like, they're just handing out money like crazy. And they're like, oh, it's $1. It's $1 because to them, it's $1 versus $10 every time, right? And where you're like, oh, should I be giving something? I never tip for this. But it's social influence. So we kind of look at where we are. When you're on vacation, you're more, oh, yeah, we're having fun. We're going to spend money.
Oh, yeah, but there's also some, and the one we probably debate on the most is getting your hair done. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about that one. Because it's not like, I agree. Like, I feel like the tipping industry is serving, obviously, those lower wage paying jobs, so I get it. if you're working in one of those jobs, those tips could be helping you, make your bills and make your rent and do all that. So we're definitely not poo-pooing on it. It's more of the confusion of it, like when to do it, why you should do it, and what you should do, right? But when it comes to like hairdressers or people who like do really good hair, like they make good money. It's not like they're like minimum wage workers, they make really good money. So when I see in our budget $250 to get your hair done, and I'm like, holy crap. And then you have to tip on top of that. Now that does include your tip, obviously, when you're putting that money in there. But that's where it's like, why do you have to tip so much on top of something that's already so expensive?
It's depending on who's setting the prices of the actual goods. So relative to hair, I got my hair done for 21 years by the same lady that ran her own chair, set her own prices, bought her own supplies, paid her own wage and all of her own bills. And with tip, my hair was $75 and everybody else's was $210. So it's all relative. If you are wanting to, if you're for a salon owner, if the salon owner is a big name, the person that's just getting started has to rely on tips to make their wages or their base. Because if they don't have any clients, they have to get walk-ins, right? So because it's a big name brand, they're going to walk in and feel comfortable because it's the brand. And then when you start to like somebody like, oh my God, she knows my name, she likes my hair. Think of the banks, how many different banks there are. But if somebody keeps going to the same bank teller, I can tell you, my mom will tell you the exact name of the person that she banked with. I can't even tell you any of the people that I bank with, only the one that is nice to me. So it's kind of one of those things of when you set your own prices as a business owner, you can kind of decide on all the things, but we look at it as, oh my God, it's so expensive already. But of the so expensive, what is the actual service person getting of that? Because you own your own business and you provide so much advice and so many great tips, and people are going to benefit
not
from
advice.
it.
We offer suggestions and recommendations.
So whether they choose to use it or not, if they choose to use your tip, they will make and save a lot of money. But then they will be like, oh, so you should be getting paid a bajillion dollars, right? But again, you're helping people and you're helping them help themselves.
P.S. Nobody gets rich being a financial coach.
Yes. No one gets rich being a business owner without employees, right? So it's one of those things that it is what it is. You're tipping based upon your feeling, that whole, even, do you guys tip your garbage men? Do you guys tip your mailman? Do you give them gifts? Does your wife do Teacher Appreciation Day and give gifts at Teacher Appreciation Day or Christmas gifts?
Nope.
But wait, why? But then, okay, so if we're talking about service related, like you look at
They teach your kids.
Tara, who sold us her house. We're going to live in this house for years. Did we tip her? Even though it's completely against etiquette, realtors technically are supposed to be taking monetary gifts.
Well, they get their closing costs.
But why don't people?
I sent them a gift.
But why don't people think about it the same way? That's more like when we had our drains cleaned out because they got clogged up in the house. We didn't tip those people when they came here right to our house to clean out. When they did our fireplace, we didn't tip. Those people don't own the business. They just came and did their job. We didn't tip them to come and clean our fireplace.
Correct.
Like you would do for, say, like a salon worker. So again, this is where it gets frustrating because
confusing.
It's like,
do you tip the guy that sold you your car? No, because he makes a commission.
Right. Does Josh get tips?
No.
Yeah, right. See? That's so weird.
They spend all day with you, working with you to try to find a car and all that stuff, but they get the commission if you decide to buy it, and then they get your referral because now, oh, you got a new car. Where'd you get it from? Oh, Josh is amazing. You need to go to Josh. And now more people, because they're referring.
The same can be said, though, about your hairstylist.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's why
she gets a commission based on whatever her cut is, based on that.
And any upsell services that she offers?
Yep.
Anything.
And that's
but then
offer,
you love
I should
it,
say.
and now you're sending people to her, but you're still tipping her. So why doesn't the car salesman get a tip?
Exactly.
Right. It's weird.
So it's a very, that's why people are confused. It's a very confusing industry because before it used to in a lot like the Midwest, I don't know how it was in Canada but you would, when the prices were lower, you would double the tax, right? So if here we're 5%, so 10% of the bill would be a good tip. So you would double the 5% tax. And some people are just so used to doing that as their default, like your dad.
Now, how many years ago is this, do you think?
So probably 15, 20, even maybe 25. But that's like, so depending on before certain things were taxable and certain things weren't taxable. So if you're buying a bunch of alcohol, and alcohol is where they make their money, right? Because if you buy your drinks in the bar and take them back to you, and then they start to refill them, and you're like, oh, do you want to transfer the tab? Well, you never made me and brought me all the original drinks. So if you close out your tab and you finish your drinks and then you start fresh, you don't feel like you had to tip on what you already paid, right? Because you already tipped. But there's some people that carry that over. And then when they're leaving, they're like, the bartender's like, oh, you guys are leaving? Bye. And they're like, oh, I never tipped her. So then you walk back in to give them money. So now they just got the double tipped. So the bartender got tipped on your drinks that you already tipped the waitress on your drinks. So that's kind of a very, it's a, hey, look over here. Hey, look over here. Magic trick. Who's gonna play? Because would you feel weird if someone handed you money? Yes. But then if they're like, oh, wow, no one's ever done this. This is so awesome. You take it because you don't want somebody else to feel bad, right? So then somebody else just saw you give them money and like, well, they've never taken money here before. That's weird.
Right.
Now they
like
have
a buffet.
jars out, or...
Here's like an example is like a buffet, right? I'm always wondering, it's like, do you tip at a buffet? Because all they're picking up your plates and, it's like.
But someone's stocking the food out there. So are they getting?
But again, how is that any different than going to McDonald's? Because
they're asking for tips now too.
Okay. I used to work at Kentucky Fried Chicken. And in fact, Ryan's wife was my boss. She's the first person to hire me, my first real job. This is how family oriented this show is getting. And I can't tell you, even in the fast food industry, how many custom requests that you would get for the orders. Right. Like we would have people just come up with like some of the stuff we just couldn't do because by policy you weren't allowed to do it. But there were some stuff that we were able to do. And it would happen quite often where they were giving weird requests, strange requests, whatever. But nowhere do they give tips in the fast food restaurant. So from a buffet standpoint, how is it any different? Like when we closed up the dining room at the Kentucky Fried Chicken, I had to go out there and clean up the dining room, right?
Which is gross.
And all of it was terrible. It was terrible. And plus our restaurant was right on the interstate, which made it even worse.
That's why as having children, I'm like, I never want to take them to the restaurant. I remember
But they're offered no tips.
Right.
And it's just, and we were told, do not take any tips. You're not allowed to take any tips.
But do you notice they changed the wording? It used to be, and in some fancier places, it still is gratuity versus tip.
Yeah.
Because if you go somewhere that it used to be gratuity, if that's gratitude, right? But tip, if someone's like, oh, where's my tip? You're like, don't eat yellow snow, right? So because people would just be sarcastic about giving a tip versus gratitude. So that's why they even changed it. So now you're like even more confused. You're like, well, I wasn't grateful for that. So it's not called gratitude anymore, right? Gratuity. So it's interesting because if you go to certain fine dining restaurants, it still says gratuity because they're like, well, yeah, I was grateful for how nice they were from the moment I walked in to the moment they left. Think of Disney. Do you tip everybody at Disney? But they're there to create relationship magic, but you think they're street sweepers or whatever, but they're literally there because they're sweeping the streets and you're stopped and you're like, where should we eat? And all of a sudden the street sweeper's like, you know what a great place to eat at right now? And then they sell you on, oh, that is a great idea. Thanks. And then they just keep on, sweeping the streets. But they're college graduates with marketing and communication and whatever degrees that are helping you create relationship magic. So it just depends on the service industry that you're in and how somebody makes you feel. So if you feel good by the end of whatever experience you have, you automatically want to give them something.
Right.
So the easiest
well, that's
way
what this reminder right here from realsimple.com. Article written by Carrie Wira Deneen. Is that how you say it? And Maggie Seaver. You should also feel good about giving gratuity. Remember that the word gratuity comes from the word gratitude. She says, think of tipping less as an obligation and more of a way of being thankful for someone who is pampering you and making you look and feel your best, right? So anyways, let's just have, okay, real quick, before we go to celebrations, because we're getting ready to close on time, what don't you tip for, and what are you willing to tip for, Amber?
I mean, if it depends on, it really depends. If I'm feeling good and somebody made me feel really good, I'm tipping them. If I have a massage, I don't tip because it's a medical thing that I'm going for. If I'm going for like a spa massage, that's different. I'm going to tip that person.
Oh my gosh. How is that so different? That's so crazy.
It's totally different.
It's all about how it made you feel, right? You remember how someone makes you feel. You don't remember on what somebody did. It's
my massage therapist goes deep. She hurts me. But it's like physio. I'm not gonna pay a physiotherapist.
Right.
But I'm not gonna tip them. But I'm gonna.
How many times do I bring you your coffee? Have you ever given me a tip?
You get me your whole life.
I know, but right. So that's my appreciation and my right. But the same thing. It's where you are and what you're feeling and what social influence is making you feel at the time, because I'm the playoff of people feeling, because again, there's certain things that I read how people are. So if they're feeling sad, I want to give them a gift, right? If they're feeling happy, I want to say thank you and give them a gift. There's, last night when I stopped to get a water at the gas station because I forgot mine, I literally walked in, these 3 police officers were standing there all pissed off. I'm like, thank you guys for keeping our road safe. They all of a sudden turned around. They're like, oh, thank you. What are you here for? And they bought me my water. So it was one of those things that if somebody's in that stressful situation and they feel like everybody hates them and you kind of switch directions, it's the law of reciprocity. If somebody makes you feel good, you want to make them feel good too. So there's no right or wrong reason. So if you feel like you should not tip them, stick with your gut. If you feel like they deserve it.
You shouldn't be guilted into it.
Right. But people will play off of guilt when you're scared.
That's where I'm at with it. I mean, what do I tip on? What do I don't tip on? If I tell you what I don't tip on, I'll have people screaming at me that I should tip on that.
Right.
If I tell you that I do tip on, then I'll have people screaming at me, then why do you tip on that? That's stupid.
Right.
You shouldn't tip on that.
Right.
Like, I think in this day and age, I tip when I feel it's necessary. There's days when I'm generous. There's days when I'm not. There's days when I put $1 at the, restaurant that I'm waiting to get food and I don't care. And then there's days that I don't. I think in this day and age, what I've learned, like, they used to be very structured. It was like you tip person who helps your luggage or you tip a restaurant. It was very finite amount of people. Right. Now it's like everybody expects it. And here's the reality. You're all not getting it because I don't have the money to keep giving it. I mean, if I would tip somebody every day, every time I went somewhere, I would have no money left at the end of the day. And so some people get it and some people don't.
And see, that's perfect. That's perfect right there, because we budget gratuity or tip gratitude in our budget. So we have the save, give, spend. Mm-hmm. So when the give is there, you can decide whatever you want. So we have set things, but how many times in one day could I go to Walgreens as a mom? 7. So there's times that he's like, how many red noses are you going to buy? I'm like, well, they keep asking me. He's like, tell them you already have one. So I'm like, oh, I just bought one. So then I was like, oh, I could do that a lot more, because same thing when people want to get, oh, you want to help with Florida? It's like, oh, I already sent a care package down, which I did. So it's like, they're just doing what they're doing. So if you're going for the no, or if you don't have to justify it. No, I already got one, if you feel like you are feeling bad. But when the money, like you said, when the money's there, awesome. That's why people, party all Friday and then dread all Sunday, because payday is awesome. And then you spend it all and it feels good. And then you have a budget for it.
Right. Yep. Totally agree. All right, guys, we're going to go take a quick break. We'll be back for some celebrations.
Hey, if you love planners, this is for you. But you know why planners frustrate me? Because they only really get it half right. Now, sure, they're really good and fancy about helping you manage your time, which is really important, obviously. That's what a planner's for. But where they get it wrong is money, the second most valuable resource in our lives. Most planners don't include any financial planning, things like, keeping track of paydays, bills, due dates, spending, yearly expenses, budgets, cash flow planning, debt elimination plans, and goal planning, right? None of that stuff. That's a real pain. And then what? Then you got to create your own in some silly binder, right? And who has time for all of that stuff? So instead, what happens? Nothing, right? A lot of people tend to ignore their finances even more, and things only get worse. Well, that all ends today, because I am so excited to announce and release my brand new, totally awesome Debt Freedom Planner. This thing's awesome, by the way. Now, before you say, Brad, I've already got a planner. This is not an ordinary day planner. This is the Debt Freedom Planner, which is a companion tool that works with your day planner, and it's built to help you manage your money, pay off more debt, and melt away financial stress. And I believe this is the tool that a lot of people who want to take control of their finances have been waiting for. So head on over to therealdebtfreedad.com, click on the Debt Freedom Planner in the menu to get access to your planner today.
Hey, what's this I see? I thought this was a party! Let's
All right. That sound means it's time for the celebrations of the show. And just want to give Sarah a big thank you for coming on. I actually really liked having a fourth personality in perspective on this show. It felt like way different. I was like, this is like just different. I was like, it's feeling good. I liked it. So I'm glad she was able to join us and give a little perspective. Today we're kicking it off with Margot Ramsey. I bought a book I have been looking for quite a while with a gift card from Mother's Day, half price. She says, I love gift cards. They are like found money. Margot, that's awesome. Great job. Great win.
Sonia Coons, I will be buying a new paint sprayer this week, but this is the best part. It's not coming out of my current income. I build and refinish furniture on the side, and my neighbor asked me to repaint a large bookcase for her. I'm not charging her very much, but saw this as an opportunity to upgrade my existing paint sprayer, which is on its last leg.
That's awesome. Good job, Sonia.
Cindy Berman went on an actual airplane to an actual vacation and used only cash.
Yeah, that's awesome. Imagine that. And Cindy's getting out of debt, saving money, and still able to go on vacation. What a great win. Another vacation, Tammy Yankee, an entire cash vacation to San Antonio. We budgeted $3,000 and stayed within the budget, all paid in cash. Tammy, congratulations to you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Dottie Bailey, I started back doing counted cross stitch, so I bought some thread and a pattern.
Awesome. Way to go, Dottie.
Brenda Philhauer, I bought a couple of books as well as some clothes.
Awesome. Great job, Brenda. Those are all cash purchases. People are celebrating some of the wins that they've had and making purchases, planning, and doing proper budgeting. So great job to all of you. And congratulations to all of you guys who are working your way towards financial freedom. And if you're just getting started with our podcast, or maybe you've been listening for some time and you're interested in how you can get started on the road to financial freedom, please head over to our website at balancesense.com and sign up for our free Life Without Payments workshop, where I'm going to actually show you the first steps that have helped tens of thousands of people just like you and I kick financial stress and worry for good. Thanks for hanging out with us here today. We love your feedback, and it also helps us grow our podcast, so please leave us an honest review. We read every single one of those, and as you guys know, the Debt Free Dad podcast is here to help you live a happier and stress-free financial life. So if you know someone who could benefit from our show, please give us a share. We appreciate you, and we will see you guys on an upcoming episode. Take care.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us here today. We love your feedback, and it also helps us grow our YouTube show. So please give us a like or leave us some honest feedback on this video. And if you want the latest from the show, obviously be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe to our channel. And for the latest resources, or if you want more information on how to kick debt and financial stress, please be sure to check out the links in this video or head over to therealdebtfreedad.com. We'll see you guys on an upcoming show. Take care.